Assalamu alaikum, beautiful, and welcome to today's video in which I'm going to walk you through a 3-step framework to getting your life together for the next 6 months. This is going to be particularly beneficial for you if you are a bit disappointed with how the year has gone so far, and if you find yourself not having reached your goals or not having embraced the character that you thought you'd be able to embrace at the beginning of the year. Today is the 1st of July, and I want us to think about this month as if it was January, and I want us to adopt the mindset that every day is an opportunity to work on ourselves, recreate our identity in order to become better for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also for the sake of the people that love us and are around us and that benefit from our presence, energy and time, and also for your sake and your personal goals as well. So if you find yourself feeling a little bit stuck and upset at the moment because it's July and you haven't reached your goals, you are in the right place. Let's talk about how we can make sure that the rest of the year is beautiful and that we're content with the amount of effort that we've put into it, inshallah. The first thing that we are going to do is a practice that my business coach Asiya has taught me in order to become better at coaching people. And I have also been using this and called it the mastery process. So now I teach it to my trainees as well in our coaching training, the Thriving Coach. And it's basically asking yourself 3 questions. You can do that with anything. We are going to use this to reflect on the past 6 months. The first question is, what went well? Okay, so in the context of my business, for example, the way that Asiya taught me to better my skills as a coach is by sitting down after each conversation I would have with a client and ask myself what went well in this coaching session. And I want you to do the same thing for the past 6 months. I want you to reflect on the moments of gratitude that you've experienced, the habits that you might have developed, the positive elements that you have engaged in the past 6 months, from January up until now. And the reason why it's important to do that is because we want to create some sort of momentum, we want to create a sense of positivity and positive reinforcement, especially because you want to hold on to the things that went well, but in order for you to do that, you need to recognize them. And you need to spend some time thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fact that He has allowed you to engage in these things or to benefit from certain things. For example, if you've been able to maintain your salah consistently for the past 6 months and that's something that's new to you, be grateful for that and thank Allah for that, and realize that some blessings come and go, and when we don't sit down and practice gratitude on them, we become entitled and we take them for granted. And so this is a beautiful question to reflect on in order to really slow down and practice gratitude and make sure that Allah increases us even more because we are getting in the habit of being grateful. The second question in this mastery process, in this assessment of the past 6 months, is what did not go well? Obviously, now that we've reflected on the good stuff and that we are a little bit more positive, it's time to think about all the things that you haven't done, all the habits that you haven't engaged in, all the people that you might have given time and space that you didn't necessarily want to give time and space to, and everything that might have a bit of a negative connotation in your life. And focus especially on the things that you had control over. So this is not an opportunity to point fingers at your environment or at people around you and blame everything and everyone outside of you. It's actually the opposite. It's a time to take responsibility for what could have been done better, basically. And the key with this prompt is really to be compassionate towards yourself, because a lot of people think that by being harsh on themselves they are going to be able to progress. A lot of the time it's related to their education, but that's not how it works. And I like giving the example of a child in a classroom and their relationship with their teacher. Think about your favorite teacher when you were young. It was rarely the rigid, strict and very mean teacher. It was the opposite. It was usually the most compassionate of them. And as human beings, subhanAllah, we need compassion in order to progress, because when we're not able to practice self-compassion, we are literally harming ourselves and our progress. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will mention His names related to compassion a lot more than any other names. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most compassionate, the most merciful. And so this is an opportunity for you to embody those qualities of compassion, reflect on what did not go well, but do it with softness and gentleness towards yourself. And the last question in this mastery process to reflect on the last 6 months is to ponder over what can be done better from now on. So now you know what went well, okay? You know what did not go so well. It's time to think about everything that went well when you pondered over those two questions and ask yourself, what can I improve now? Okay, so if I look at the things that went well, alhamdulillah, these were great. I prayed my salah every day on time. I engaged in more dhikr, in more gratitude. I traveled the world. I applied myself a lot more with ihsan in my job. Whatever it is, okay, what can I do better in these things? If you want to, and if you feel the need to. Now, if you look at the second question, what did not go well, what can I do better in those things? So if you missed out on some commitments, what can you do better with those commitments, or what can you do differently with those commitments? And make a very concrete list of these things. Now, if there are a lot of items on that list, do not panic. Later on in this framework, I will show you exactly what to focus on, inshallah. That was the first step. The second step, once you have assessed the past 6 months, is to really reflect in detail on what kind of woman do you want to be by the end of the year. And in order to do that, there's two tools that I absolutely love using and that I always recommend to my clients. The first one is visualization. So visualization is literally just about sitting down and meditating about the woman that you want to become, and just visualizing that, simply put. And the second tool is called scripting. I love scripting. My clients also rave about it. Scripting consists of sitting down and on your journal, writing in the present tense, describing the woman that you are in your state of higher self, in your state of ideal self, basically. And what that does is that it puts you in an energy that's really motivating, and that creates that desire to get there, that yearning for that persona, for that identity. And when you do these things, whether it's the visualizing or the scripting or both of them, because they're complementary, I want you to think about some specific questions, and I've written them down because I didn't want to forget any of them. But you are going to ask yourself, what type of woman do I want to be? Okay, so imagine yourself 6 months from now in a perfect scenario, in an ideal life. How do I show up in my life? What is my environment like? Maybe you've changed house. Maybe you've changed country. Maybe you're married now. Maybe you have children. What am I surrounded by? So who are the people who are surrounding me? Do you have new friends that are inspiring, that are a source of good company for you, that remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that help you increase your love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example? How much money do you make in that ideal life? What are you wearing? I want you to go as much in detail as possible, because the brain is such a beautiful tool, and it's such a beautiful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that when we know exactly what we want, Allah shows us these things in a very easy manner. So when you are aware of the type of car that you want, the type of job that you want, the type of woman that you want to become, it becomes easier to develop those habits that will lead you to becoming that woman, because your brain has already created the shortcuts that will lead you to being that woman. Another question: how are you spending your time in that ideal scenario, in that ideal life 6 months from now? What activities are you engaging in? And what do you look like in general? So think about all the questions that are relevant to you in your life and script about them or visualize them. And there's tons of visualization videos on YouTube. I record my own and I give them to my clients, alhamdulillah. You can do that without a guided meditation. You can do it on your own. Simply sit down, take 5 minutes for yourself, and just project yourself in the future by visualizing this future woman. Because it's really important to know where you're going in order to get there. If you don't know the type of woman that you want to be, how will you ever get to that point? It just doesn't make sense to not have a clear idea of that. And if it's really hard for you to answer those questions, don't see that as an obstacle. It just means that you have to test and try things. If you don't know what your hobbies are, if you don't know even what your personality consists of, because you've always been someone who was there to please other people, and you've always been a woman who was simply listening and following other people's instructions about who to be, it's never too late to break free from that and to allow yourself to be more authentic by listening to yourself, by trying different things, by not being afraid of making mistakes as well. Once you've reflected on the type of woman that you want to be using those two tools or any other tool that you want, make dua for those things. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you the woman who wakes up early for Fajr or for Tahajjud. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you the woman who has a special connection with the Quran. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you the promotion that you want, to grant you the child that you've been dreaming of having, to grant you the spouse that you've been yearning of having as well. Make dua for all of these things, because these things are not going to happen through you. They're only going to happen through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity. And so we always need to come back to Him. Now finally, once you've done these two things, so number one was assessing how the past 6 months went, and the second one was getting concrete clear on what type of woman you want to be by the end of the year, it's time to make a concrete plan on how you are going to get there, because a lot of things might have come out from these two prompts, and you need to be precise and you need to be clear really on what is the next step from now on, because there's a possibility that these two prompts might make you feel overwhelmed. And so the point of this last step is really to filter out what you can focus on for the next 6 months. And the way that you can do that is simply by asking yourself, what needs to happen in order for me to become that woman? That's the first step, okay? So let's look at 3 fields in your life that you can get some concrete actions from. The first one that I like to start with is spirituality. So on the spiritual level, what do I need to develop in terms of habits, thought patterns, beliefs in order for me to become the woman that I just described in the previous step? And also, what sins do I need to let go of? What bad habits do I need to let go of? What type of people do I need to stop spending time with in order for me to embody the woman that I want to become? The second category that you can look at is the physical element. So when I say physical, what I mean is your well-being when it comes to sleep, food, and exercise. These are 3 components that will basically impact you more than anything else in your life. So are you sleeping well enough? Are you eating healthy? And are you moving your body in a way that allows you to generate energy on a daily basis? These 3 things, if you work on them for the next 6 months, will generally change your life, especially if you're struggling with a bit of light depression, okay? Not clinical depression, but if you find yourself being in a slump, working on these 3 things is the first thing that you need to do. And the third field that you can reflect on is on the mental and emotional side of things. So what are some intellectual habits that you need to develop in order to become the woman that you want to be? What is some knowledge that you need to gain? What are some books that you want to be reading? And again, are there any people that tend to be energy drainers that you need to distance yourself from? What can you change about your surrendering in order to reach a better place emotionally and intellectually? These are the 3 categories that I like to include in this reflection. You can pick your own categories that are relevant to your own lifestyle, inshallah. So what's going to happen once you've answered those questions is that you are going to have a massive list of things to work on normally. And this is where it's important to filter out again what is more of a priority to work on. My advice to you is to focus on the next 3 months rather than the next 6 months, because that's too much of a stretch and we need to reassess the situation 3 months from now in order to see if anything needs to be tweaked. So think about the next 3 months, okay? July, August, September. What is your focus going to be? Pick 3 things out of that massive list that you want to focus on. And ideally, make it one thing in each category. So for example, if your categories are just like me, spirituality, physical well-being, and mental/emotional well-being, pick one goal for each category that you are going to focus on. So let's say spiritually, I really want to develop my connection with the Quran. And so I'm going to make sure that I read the Quran at least 5 minutes every day, and I'm going to commit to that. That's one goal for the next 3 months. Physically, I know that my sleep schedule is an absolute mess at the moment, and that's my priority, so I'm only going to focus on that for the next 3 months. Mentally and emotionally, I miss reading, so I'm going to make sure that I get 10 minutes of reading before sleeping every day. These are just some examples of what you can pick in terms of goals for the next 3 months. And I don't want you to overwhelm yourself by picking 25 goals, because it's not realistic. And what's going to happen if you have too many on your mind, and you are going to be disappointed, and then you're going to fall back in that vicious cycle of thinking that you're not capable of progressing and of reaching your goals, and all of this is going to lead to a massive sense of failing that we want to avoid. That's why it's important to really be kind and realistic with yourself when it comes to setting goals. The next step is to put some sort of deadline on these goals or some sort of measurable elements. So when I give you examples, I made sure to say 10 minutes per day, 10 minutes every day. Just make them into into SMART goals. If you haven't heard about SMART goals, just go and Google that and you'll have a framework on how to set goals in an effective way. So SMART is an acronym for specific, measurables, achievable, realistic, and time-bounded. If your goals have all of these elements, then normally they should be easier to reach, inshallah. Now, when it comes to this specific step, it's important to not get discouraged if you don't reach your deadlines and if you don't manage to fully commit to the goals that you are going to set for yourself. Again, it's all about being compassionate towards yourself. What we want to avoid is having that black and white mentality of I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and be a completely different person. And obviously that's going to be possible for a couple of days and then you are going to fall back into bad habits. And when that happens, being harsh on yourself is not going to be helpful, okay? Instead, we really want to see this as a lifelong journey because that's what setting new habits is about. Like, people think that it's easy and it takes 40 days or 21 days to create a new habit, but it's not the case. It takes a lifetime to create new habits, to embody the identity that we want to embody. That's the nature of this life. We are forgetful people, we are distracted people, and our only chance of surpassing and transcending our ego in this life is really to keep on trying and never give up. And so do not get frustrated when you don't reach your deadlines or when you can't commit to your goals fully 100% from the beginning. Finally, what I find helpful is finding a friend who's also on a personal development journey and dragging them along with me on this type of experiences that I engage in. So just yesterday I was having brunch with my best friend Sumia and we were just reflecting on the things that we could improve in our day-to-day life. We committed to two things. The first thing was improving our sleep schedule, and the second thing was making sure that we have some sort of self-care slot in our calendar every week, a time where we just disconnect from the world and do something that refills our cup, basically. And doing that with her is helpful because I know she is going to hold me accountable with a lot of gentleness. So she will text me and ask me if I did what I was supposed to do in order to feel better, or if I slept early last night. And that makes the journey so much easier, and it makes it fun as well, and it makes it comforting because now you feel supported in that journey to your better self. And I love that. So if you have a friend that you know will be on board to do something like this, just send them this video so that they understand what you are planning on doing and have them do this with you, inshallah. And tell them specifically what you're working on and what you expect of them as well in terms of accountability. That's it for today, alhamdulillah. I hope these prompts and this framework is useful for you. I am going to try my best to stick to it as well. Let me know in the comments if you do the journaling prompts and if you follow my tips, and maybe come back 3 months from now in order to assess where you're at and how it went for you. On this note, I have to tell you about something that's happening in a couple of weeks, inshallah. On the 14th of July, I'm organizing a coaching success intensive. For those of you who are interested in starting a coaching business or who already have a coaching business but are struggling a little bit to reach your goals and to turn it into a successful business, I'm gonna host a 4-hour intensive where I'll be specifically talking about how to create processes and systems to become a professional coach rather than someone who doesn't know what they're doing and who's very overwhelmed. And the second part will be about how to get your first paid clients without necessarily using social media. So I'm really excited for this. It's a free event. However, it's not an event that will be open to everyone. It is application based, and I'm gonna put the application form in the description box below, inshallah, if you're interested in joining us. This is an event for women only. It's going to be in a group setting. I will give you things to do on the day so that it's not just theory, and so that you actually progress straight on that day of the intensive, inshallah. And you will get to meet some incredible women who are also on a path of helping other people and being of service to other people, inshallah. I can't wait to see you there if you apply and you are selected. Obviously, there's a limited amount of spots because we want it to be a cozy and intimate group, inshallah. So do not wait too long to apply because we are going to be sending the invitation in the next few days, inshallah. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, like, and share it with other sisters that might benefit, inshallah. I will see you in the next one, and in the meantime, take care of yourself. Ma salama.